As Ji-hoon grows older, he starts to step back from his company. But investors begin to push for his children, Hana and Min-soo, to take over. Even though they're still finding their own paths. Hana wants to be an artist, not a CEO. Min-soo is more interested in social work than business. Conflict arises between tradition, carrying on Ji-hoon's empire, and individuality, allowing the children to follow their dreams. Ji-hoon and Samrawit must guide them through the weight of expectations. Samrawit decides she wants to build something of her own, a cultural foundation to support Ethiopian immigrants and intercultural families in Korea. She faces prejudice from some circles, but Ji-hoon supports her wholeheartedly. Together, they establish the Tesfahan Cultural Foundation, which becomes a beacon for multicultural love and acceptance in Korea. Ji-hoon's health begins to decline from years of stress and work. Rumors swirl that the company may collapse without him. Samrawit stands by his side, proving her love is not just in good times but also in weakness. Their children rally together, each contributing in their own way. Hana designs campaigns to inspire cultural unity, and Min-soo brings in community support. This crisis becomes a story of family resilience. Hana falls in love with a Korean-Ethiopian musician who struggles with his identity. Through her, he learns to embrace both cultures. Min-soo falls in love with a Korean girl whose parents disapprove because of his mixed heritage. His fight mirrors Ji-hoon and Samrawit's struggles, and history repeats, but with a new generation proving that love prevails. Years later, Hana writes a memoir about her parents' story, how her father, once rejected for his flaw, found love in an Ethiopian woman who changed everything. The book inspires people worldwide, spreading their legacy beyond Korea. Ji-hoon, reading the manuscript, whispers to Samrawit, "Even after I'm gone, our love will keep speaking." Hana, their firstborn, grew into a young woman of remarkable beauty and talent. With her father's sharp eyes and her mother's warm complexion, she stood out wherever she went. But standing out wasn't always easy. Some classmates called her the foreigner, while others idolized her for her mixed heritage. Despite pressure to study business and one day lead her father's empire, Hana's heart leaned toward painting. She painted the duality of her identity, portraits of hanbok-clad women drinking Ethiopian coffee, children with braided hair playing under cherry blossoms, and landscapes where Mount Hala met the highlands of Addis Ababa. When Ji-hoon first saw her portfolio, he frowned. "Hana, this won't secure your future," he said. But Samrawit placed a hand on his arm. "Ji-hoon, remember? Love saw you when others only saw flaws. Let us see her heart before her path." It was Samrawit's words that softened him. Ji-hoon realized he must allow his daughter to choose her own destiny, not bind her to his. Min-soo, younger but full of spirit, inherited Ji-hoon's determination and Samrawit's compassion. Unlike his sister, he didn't care for art or business. He wanted to help people, often volunteering at community centers for multicultural families in Seoul. When asked why, he said simply, "Appa was once judged for his condition. Yama was judged for her skin. I don't want anyone else to feel that way." Yet, when he fell in love with a Korean girl from a conservative family, he faced his own storm. Her parents disapproved, saying, "Your bloodline is mixed. Our daughter deserves someone pure." The sting reminded Ji-hoon of his own mother's doubts years ago. Ji-hoon told his son, "Love will always be tested. What matters is if you are willing to stand, even when the world pushes." Min-soo, emboldened by his parents' story, held on to his love. Eventually, the girl's parents, seeing his resilience and character, softened. History repeated itself, but this time, love won faster. Even as she cared for her family, Samrawit longed to give back. She founded the Tesfahan Cultural Foundation, an organization that supported Ethiopian immigrants and multicultural families in Korea. It offered language classes, job training, and cultural exchange programs. At first, she was met with skepticism. Some saw her as just the CEO's wife. Others doubted a foreign woman could succeed in such a space. But Ji-hoon stood beside her at every event, introducing her as my wife, my strength, and the founder of this vision. The foundation flourished. Soon, it became a national symbol of unity, bridging gaps between cultures. In Ji-hoon's later years, stress and age caught up to him. His chronic condition worsened, and long flights for business drained him. He sometimes feared being seen as weak, but Samrawit never let him sink into despair. One evening, as he sat on the balcony watching the Seoul skyline, he whispered, "What if I fade before my time?" Samrawit leaned into him, replying softly, "Then you will fade knowing you were loved beyond measure. That is no weakness. That is victory." Her words kept him going through treatments, reminding him that even in frailty, he was never alone. Years later, Hannah, now a painter with exhibitions in Seoul and Addis Ababa, decided to write a memoir about her parents' journey. She called it The Heart Sees. In the opening chapter, she wrote, "My father was once avoided because of a flaw. My mother was once judged because of her skin. But together, they built a home where two worlds became one. And because of them, I believe love is stronger than any barrier." The book gained international attention, inspiring countless couples across the world. Messages poured in. "Because of your parents' story, we found the courage to love." Ji-hoon, now with silver in his hair, read the manuscript with tears in his eyes. "Even after I'm gone," he told Samrawit, "our love will keep speaking." On their 50th wedding anniversary, the family gathered, children, grandchildren, and friends from Korea and Ethiopia. The hall was once again filled with color. Hanbok beside traditional Ethiopian dresses, bibimbap served next to injera, and the sound of Ethiopian drums blending with Korean folk songs. Ji-hoon, frail but smiling, raised his glass. "I once thought my greatest achievement was my company. But no, my greatest achievement sits before me. My wife, my children, my grandchildren. A legacy not built on perfection, but on love." Samrawit squeezed his hand, just as she did on that first nervous dinner with his parents. "And remember, Ji-hoon," she whispered, "it all began because one man dared to believe he could be loved, and one woman dared to see beyond flaws. Their children and grandchildren would carry this story for generations. A story of acceptance, resilience, and love that transcended culture, prejudice, and imperfection." And so, the Han Tesfaye family became not just a family, but a living legacy, a testament that. And so, the Han Tesfaye family became not just a family, but a living legacy, a testament that true love does not erase flaws, but embraces them, creating a home where two worlds can dance together in harmony. In the quiet of an autumn evening, golden leaves drifted across Seoul streets. The Han Tesfaye home was alive with laughter. Grandchildren running through the halls, Hannah showing her latest painting to cousins, and Min-soo leading a group in preparing coffee the Ethiopian way. Ji-hoon and Samrawit sat together on the balcony, wrapped in blankets, watching the family they had built. Ji-hoon's hair was white now, his steps slower, his breath sometimes heavy. Yet his eyes still shone whenever they fell on Samrawit. "Do you hear that?" Ji-hoon asked softly. "The laughter?" she replied, resting her head on his shoulder. "Yes, that sound is better than any applause I ever received for business. It is the sound of legacy." Samrawit smiled, her hand warm against his. "You once thought you would live and die alone. But look at what love gave you." Silence fell between them, but it was not empty. It was full of years lived, storms endured, and joys multiplied. When Ji-hoon's final days approached, his family gathered close. Hannah read aloud from The Heart Sees, her voice trembling as she told the story of her parents' love. Min-soo sat at his father's side, holding his hand. Samrawit never left him, whispering prayers and memories into his ear. On his last morning, as sunlight touched the room, Ji-hoon turned to his wife of 55 years. With the faintest of smiles, he whispered, "You saved me from silence, Samrawit. You gave me love, a family, a life worth living." Tears glistened in her eyes as she pressed her forehead to his. "And you, Ji-hoon, taught me that love is not bound by culture, by flaw, or by fear. It is bound only by choice. And I would choose you again." With that, Ji-hoon closed his eyes, a peace washing over him as if the loneliness that once haunted him had long been erased. Samarwit wept, but not with despair, with gratitude for a love that had spanned decades and generations. In the years that followed, Hannah's art and Minsu's social work carried forward their parents' vision. The Tesfahan Cultural Foundation grew into an international movement, championing acceptance and unity. Their grandchildren proudly bore both Korean and Ethiopian names, speaking both languages, carrying both traditions. And whenever they asked about their grandparents, Samarwit would tell them, "Your grandfather was once a man avoided for his flaws. I was once a woman judged for my skin. But together, we built a home where love had no borders." That is the story you must remember and carry forward. Thus, the tale of Han Ji-hoon and Samarwit Tesfaye lived on, not only in the memories of their family but in the lives they touched across the world. Their love was never about perfection. It was about the courage to see, the strength to stay, and the choice to love beyond barriers. And as their children and grandchildren often said with pride, "Our family began when one woman chose to see a man's heart, and one man chose to believe he was worthy of love." Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the story, please leave a comment. Also like, share and subscribe to my channel and click on the notification icon so that you will get notified whenever a new story is uploaded.